Hi and welcome to my channel. For the last 6 years or so I have been using a Panasonic GH5 to film this kind of videos. Now I have sold this camera and replaced it with the Nikon Z6III. The Nikon Z8, which is filming me right now, is an amazing camera with a lot of functions and I really like it, especially for photography. But when I'm filming myself, I rather prefer the flip-out screen so that I can see from the front. And also the Z6III is a bit lighter, which is nice for traveling. I set up the Z6III exactly the same as my Nikon Z8, and this is the reason why I can already share this with you. There is only one thing. On the Z6III there are a few buttons less than on the Z8. So the button layout is pretty much the same, at least there are the same number of buttons available on both cameras. And by the way, Nikon, if you're watching, I rather prefer the wheels of the Z8 compared to the Z6III. Both cameras have two function buttons in the front, here and here. But the Z8 on the right has an additional button here for the autofocus. And now the buttons on top, so in the shutter button area these are the same. Here we have an additional button which is the LCD illumination button, and on this side we have the mode dial, which is like just this button on the Z8. So on the Z8 I have 3 more buttons here. Later in the video I show you how I customize all the buttons. And for the purpose of this video I've already reset the camera and set the language to English. If you want to change the language, it is the 4th item in the setup menu. And now I go through all the settings I change compared to the default values. And one additional note before I start: if you don't find some of the features or the numbering is different, it could be that you are using a different firmware version. I'm using the latest firmware version, which is 2.00, and you can check your firmware version, which is the last item in the setups menu. And now let's get through the points. So the first menu is the photo shooting menu, and here I change the file naming from DST to NZ6, so that I already know from the file name from which camera this is. And under the secondary slot function you can change from overflow to backup if you want to write the files to both cards. Under the image area I activate the DX crop alert so that I get this blinking sign when I'm in DX mode. So when I change from FX to DX, for example, you get this warning here, and the same is for video. Here is now in FX mode, I'm now in DX mode, and here is the alert. In the image quality settings I change the image quality to RAW, and the image quality HSFC I change from normal to JPEG fine. And the next point is white balance, and here I change from the auto white balance to color temperature, and here I can set, for example, 5600 for daylight. I always set a fixed color temperature because I don't want the color temperature to change during a shoot, especially for video. The picture control I set to neutral. There is also a flat one available, but usually I use the neutral. The vignette control I set from normal to off because I prefer to do it in post. Auto distortion control I deactivate also because again I also want to do it in post. The release mode I change from single frame to continuous low, and if I take pictures of wildlife or sport I usually use continuous high. The focus mode I change from AFS to AFC, the continuous autofocus, because I use back button AF and this is how I do it. The AF area mode I changed from single point to auto area AF because this is the one I use the most. The MF subject detection area I changed from off to all. The vibration reduction I changed from on to sport. This is the mode I use usually because I like it more. In the interval timer shooting, I changed the interval from 1 minute to 5 seconds because this is what I usually use. And the intervals times shots I changed from 1 times 1 to 900 times 1. This means that it takes 900 pictures when I do a time-lapse, but usually I cancel it before. The exposure smoothing I switch off because when I do a Holy Grail time-lapse, I usually use an app for automatic ramping. In the time-lapse video function, I change the frame rate from 4K 30 to 4K 25 because this is what I usually use. And this is all for the photo shooting menu. Next menu is the video recording menu, and here I again change the file naming from DSC to NZ6. Okay. The video file type I change from 8-bit to 10-bit. This is what I use usually for my YouTube videos. Of course, you can also shoot in RAW with this, but I don't want to handle the big files. The frame size, frame rate I change again from 30p to 25p. Unless I'm using slow motion, then I use 50 or 100. In the image area function, I again activate the DX crop alert. White balance and picture control is the same as for the photo. And again, the MF subject detection area I change to all. And last but not least, I change the audio input sensitivity from auto to manual. And here I set the value to 12, but of course I can change this at any time. And I think this is all I change in this menu. So the next one is the custom settings menu. And here we start with the focus. The AFS priority selection I change from focus to release because when I want to take a picture, I want to release it. It doesn't matter if the camera thinks it is in focus or not. I want to take a picture. And the next one is the AF activation. I change here from on to AF on only. And this is now this back button autofocus function. And what does back button autofocus mean? When I half press the shutter button, the camera is not focusing. It is just focusing when I press the AF on button. Under A8, the limit AF area mode selection, I remove here the pinpoint AF because I usually don't use it. It is too small. Then back again. Next point is A10 focus point display. And here I activate the AFC in focus display. Next I deactivate the built-in AF assist illuminator. Then the focus peaking, I activate this and I set the peaking sensitivity to 3. Here you can see now the focus peaking. So the areas that are in focus are red. The next thing I change is the C2, the self-timer, and here I set the delay from 10 seconds to just 5 seconds and the number of shots to 3. And the interval between the shots I change to 1 second. The maximum shots per burst I change from 200 to infinity. And then we come to the custom monitor shooting display, and here I deactivate the 2nd and the 5th. And by right clicking you can customize the displays, and for example on display 3 I deactivate the histogram, and on the 4th one I activate all of them. Done. Going back, and I do the same for the custom viewfinder shooting display. Here I deactivate just the second one. On the third display I again remove the histogram, and on the fourth display again I do all of them. Done. Back. The next point I change is the eye menu, and here I change the focus mode to the flash mode to quickly access the flash mode. I change the tone mode to the silent mode. The custom control shooting I change to the interval timer shooting. The metering I change to the custom control shooting. The airplane mode I change to choose image area, and the view memory card info I change to focus peaking. And the next point is the custom control shooting, which is maybe the most interesting for you. And here I change the FN1 button from white balance to cycle AF area mode. And here I deselect everything except of single point and auto area AF. This means I can quickly switch between those two. And the FN2 button I change from the focus mode area mode to the recall shooting functions hold. And here I deselect everything except of AF area mode. And here I select 3D tracking. So with the function button 1 I can easily switch between the auto area AF and single point. And by pressing the FN2 button I can quickly switch between auto area AF and 3D tracking. The subselector center I change to reset. And the video record button I change to zoom on off and 200%, which is nice because you can quickly zoom in 200%, which is nice for focusing when you use a manual vintage lens, for example. The illuminator button I change to where is it? Starlight view mode. And this is not just great for composition when you are in the middle of the night somewhere, but also when you do flash photography in a very low light situation. And also the autofocus is working a lot better in these dimly lit situations. The lens function button I change to save focus position to all. And the lens function button 2 I change to recall focus position. Okay. Under the custom controls playback I change this button here from protect to zoom to 200%, which is also nice for checking focus. And if I take a picture now, you can zoom in with this button, or you can zoom in to 200% with this button. And on the sub command dial I change the frame advance from 1 to 10 frames, which means I can quickly go through the images. The next point I customize is the eye menu for video. And here I change the custom controls to choose image area, and the wind noise reduction I change to the custom controls. The airplane mode I change to the zebra pattern, and the destination I change to the focus picking. Done. Okay, now to the custom controls for video, and here I change the FN1 button from white balance to framing grid. In video mode you can quickly turn off and on the grid. The FN2 button I change to switch FX-DX, and with the FN2 button you can quickly change to the crop mode. The release mode I change to focus mode AF area mode. The sub-selector center I change again to reset. And the illuminator button I change to white balance, because usually I don't need to light this display and there is no dedicated white balance button, so this is quite quickly. That's it. Next point is the AF speed. I change from 0 to 1, and the AF tracking sensitivity from 4 to 3. This should give me a slightly quicker AF speed. Next point is the extended shutter speeds, and I set this to on. And the shutter mode I change from shutter speed to shutter angle. And if you are in manual mode, you can see now here we have the shutter angle, and yeah, of course you can change it, but usually you keep the 180-degree rule. The zebra pattern I change the tone range from off to high. You can see now the highlights if they are too bright. So for example, if I raise the ISO, you can see now that these areas are too bright. And for the brightness information display I change from the histogram to the waveform monitor, which I think give you more information. Next point is the custom monitor shooting display, and again here I deactivate the display 2 and display 4. And for display 1 I add the horizon, the brightness information and the grid. And for the display 3 I also add the grid. And in the custom viewfinder shooting display I deactivate display 3. And now we are through the custom settings menu. In the playback menu I change the playback display options. Here I add the highlights and the overview, and I delete all the detailed shooting data. And for the playback display, here it is just image without information. By pressing down 2 times you can see the highlights if there are some, and if you press down again once more you can see the detailed information with the shutter speed and so on. And I think that's all I do here. The next point is the setups menu. Here you can format the memory card and set the language, for example. Here you can set the time zone and the date. Next point is the limit monitor mode selection, and here I deactivate the last options, I don't use it. And what I also do in this menu is the non-CPU lens data. Here you can set up to 20 lenses, like manual vintage lenses. So you set the focal length, the maximum aperture, and you can also give it a name. And you can do this now for all the lenses. So now I have added all the vintage lenses I have. And why do you do this? To use vibration reduction. But of course you have to select the correct lens here. The next point is save focus position. I activate this, and this means that when I shut down, the focus position is saved, and when I switch it on again, it is in the same position. And what you can also add here is the copyright information. You can set this to on, and here under artist and copyright you can add your name, for example. Like so. And under camera sounds I changed the volume from 3 to 1, and also the lower volume here from 2 to 1. So the next thing is the slot empty release lock, and here I set from OK to lock, which means that you cannot take any pictures if there is no card inside. And if you don't have a card inside, you have this warning and you cannot take any pictures. And last but not least, the last point here is the firmware version, where you can check it as mentioned in the beginning. The next menu is the network menu, and the only thing I change here is I activate the airplane mode to save some battery. And the last menu is the My menu, and here I add features that I use often. Some of them I have already on function buttons, but anyhow. So the first point is in the custom settings menu, and here I select under D, the D5, which is the exposure delay mode. I use this very often when I take pictures from a tripod. The next point is also in the custom settings menu, under shooting, and here D11, which is the starlight view. Then I also select D13 because I have reassigned this button here. Then I add in the setups menu the monitor brightness. I like to reduce the brightness of the monitor when I'm out in the middle of the night so that I don't get blind. The next point I add is in the custom settings menu under focus, and here the A6, which is the focus activation. Because when I hand over the camera to somebody to take a picture of me, this is the mode usually the people are used to. The next point is also in the custom settings menu, and here the timer, the self timer C2. Then I add from the photo shooting menu the interval timer shooting. Move it down. Also the focus shift shooting. The auto capture, as well as the auto bracketing, because I don't have a dedicated button for this. Then I add from the custom settings menu under video the grid type. Here you can quickly select the different aspect ratios, and also from the custom settings menu video the brightness information display. And this means I can quickly switch between histogram and waveform monitor. So that's it. These are my camera settings on the Nikon Z6III. I hope you find this video helpful. If so, please give it a thumbs up. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.